There's been so many romance releases that have come out in the first half of 2026 that I have been on the edge of my seat waiting for. I'm gonna go through all of these books and whether or not they lived up to the hype. Starting with the books that absolutely exceeded my expectations. First, we've got Broken Dove by Dani Francis. This is the second book in the Silver Elite series, and oh my God, was this book incredible. I genuinely had such high hopes from this. I rated Silver Elite 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It's a dystopian romance, and you've got our FMC who's got hidden powers. She's known as Modified, and she's in hiding. Something happens and she gets forced into training for the military program designed to hunt people down like her. And genuinely, it was absolutely incredible. It was actually Divergent on crack. So you best believe I had extremely high hopes for this book, and oh, did it deliver. I was absolutely shocked, gobsmacked, jaw on the motherfucking floor with the turn that occurred with the romance in this book. I did not see that coming. I don't think it was possible to see that coming. I love how unique that idea was. I have never read anything like that before in a dystopian romance. And don't even get me started on that ending. The first book ended in an insane way. There was so many plot twists. This book was the exact same. Silver Elite is fast becoming a god tier series for me. Absolutely phenomenal. And then we've got my only really other book that exceeded my expectations, which is kind of sad. Hunt the Villain by Rina. Oh my God, like seriously, my expectations for this book were up here and we just skyrocketed out of the fucking world. Like, I actually can't. This book was absolutely everything. Julian and Vaughn's relationship was so beautiful. There was so much emotional depth to their relationship and to themselves as well as individuals, and I just absolutely devoured it. I love the second chance element to the story. It made so much sense because they come from opposing mafia families, so I was thinking, how is that going to work? They are literally enemies, but they were together at a camp 5 years prior to when their kind of romance starts, so it's actually like such a beautiful way of writing this story. My jaw was on the literal floor with those smutty scenes. Like, breed me, baby. I actually can't. Like, I genuinely can't. Seriously, like, this is some of the craziest smut that Rina has written. Like, it actually is. If you've read this book, you will know absolutely what I'm talking about. I don't think I've seen a negative review for this book. I genuinely don't think it's possible to read this book and not absolutely love it. It was amazing. Oh, it's an MM romance, and there's switches, which is so fun because they both get like their dominance energy out, and like they're kind of just like fighting for power, and I just, oh my God, like genuinely, I miss them. And I haven't been able to read MM since. I've not read any Rina Kent books. You can still read and enjoy this. It can be read as a standalone. This is utter perfection. This is utter MM perfection. All right, now let's discuss the two books that lived up to the hype. So, first up, we've got The Night We Met by Abby Jimenez. I actually had pretty high hopes for this book. I was a bit unsure of how it was going to play out because Abby Jimenez usually writes really healthy and beautiful relationships, and this is a very toxic trope. This is boyfriend's best friend. So I was thinking, oh my gosh, this could go one of two ways. This could be absolutely amazing, like majority of what Abby Jimenez already writes is, or we could find out that she might not be able to actually write toxic tropes like that. But nonetheless, I had pretty high hopes for this book, and this book absolutely delivered. As soon as it started, straight into the story, I was hooked, I was interested, and the way she actually wrote about this trope was insane. It had me sitting here thinking, oh my God, these two were meant for each other. It was such a slow burn in such a beautiful way. It wasn't like either of them had bad intentions. Like, the guys were close friends and she really loved her boyfriend. So it was actually just like so beautiful to see this play out. The way that Larissa, our FMC, was falling in love with our MMC Chris through Mike, oh, beautifully done. Absolutely beautifully done. Like, I had no clue what to expect in how she was going to do this trope, and she just delivered. Chris, oh my gosh, like, it seriously doesn't get better than that. An acts of service king, all these gorgeous gestures and these beautiful things that he was just doing for her because he cared about her and not because he wanted any recognition in the slightest, had me absolutely falling for him. And when it all came out and she realized that he was actually the one she was falling in love with through her boyfriend at the time, who was just, oh, I mean, I don't know how Abby Jimenez is going to redeem him, because she's writing a book on him next, and I hate the guy, so we'll see what happens there. It was just utter perfection. This is my favorite Abby Jimenez as of right now. I still have a couple that I haven't read, but I absolutely loved this book so much. So yes, this lived up to the hype, and I would definitely recommend. And then another book that lived up to the hype for me was Unbound by Peyton and Corinne. This is from the Undone series, which is a really emotional mental health rep ice hockey series that focuses on imperfect characters and just their struggles. And it's a really beautiful series. When I read the first book and Bennett came into the picture, a guy who shows his love by cooking for others, barely speaks, doesn't like to be touched. Honestly, I was like so intrigued. I was genuinely like, who is this man? I want to read his book. I had very high hopes already for his book. You know, when you just connect to a side character and you just think, oh, I know I'm going to love him and I know I'm going to love his book. And this book delivered. It gave me exactly what I wanted out of it. Bennett and the way that he yearned for Paloma, this is also a second chance, was absolutely everything. We had extreme yearning from both parties. So much emotional turmoil. I definitely teared up during this read. Emmett is autistic and he's got OCD, and the way that the mental health rep was written in this book was incredible. I love Peyton Corinne in the way it feels like she really researches and knows what she's talking about. It feels like they're represented properly. This is my favorite book in the series. There is one more coming out, but honestly, this was everything I wanted it to be. If you want a sports romance book that's going to rip your heart out of your chest with extreme yearning on both sides, definitely give this a read. All right, now we've got the 4 books that absolutely plummeted. I really had such high expectations for these books, and none of them lived up to my expectations. Maybe my expectations were more wild, but you know, I think I speak for a lot of people on Book Talk where some of these books were extremely hyped, and then when I read them, I was just like, oh, it's so shitty when that happens. All right, let's start with the one that absolutely crushed and burned the worst for me, and I don't even have that physical copy on me because I am so glad I didn't buy it. And that's Love Song by Elle Kennedy. I've got beef with this book. I've got literal beef with this book because you're telling me the MMC, Wyatt, Garrett Graham's son, acts like that? Like, I'm actually sorry, but no. No. Man-child. Absolute man-child. DNF this book at 85%, if you can believe, because I just got so annoyed and so frustrated. I need to calm down. I actually need to calm down. You've got Wyatt. I don't even remember her name. I've forgotten her name. What's her name? Oh my god. Wyatt? Blake. So you've got Wyatt and Blake, right? So they've grown up together. So they have a very sibling dynamic with each other. They were just bickering and arguing for like 50% of the book. Like, I was actually sitting there thinking, okay, so I don't see the tension. They're literally arguing with each other nonstop. So where's the connection? They're acting like they're literally siblings. So how am I supposed to feel any way towards these two other than frustration, because how do you expect me to believe this is going to develop into a romance? I was absolutely shocked, right? The only thing that made me think, oh, okay, so like I guess this is like a romance, was Wyatt just constantly like sexualizing her and talking about her appearance, right? And like, of course, I love reading a book where a man thinks a woman is absolutely stunning, of course. But there needs to be more than that for me to actually enjoy it. I didn't even feel like I could enjoy it because it just felt like it was him objectifying her, because they didn't even like really like each other. Like, they were arguing so much and so often. So I just literally, yeah, I really just disliked it. And then the events at the end of the book, it's just like one after the other of just like, what the hell? Like, genuine what the hell? And then one thing happened at around like the 70% mark, and I just thought, oh my God, like, what am I doing? What am I actually doing? I think that if I was reading the book physically, I probably would have quit earlier, but I was listening to it on audio, so I was like, okay, like, you know, I can push through, like, this is fine, like, whatever. No. Okay, next up, we have In Her Own League by Liz Tomforde, and look, something must be wrong with me. Something must be wrong with me, because every single person on TikTok is obsessed with this book. And don't get me wrong, Liz Tomforde, absolutely love her. Love the Windy City series. I read that years ago before it blew up. That series holds such a dear place in my heart. So you best believe my expectations for this book were on the roof. I was so incredibly excited for this book. I DNF this at 50%. And look, I'll be honest, workplace romance is my least favorite trope. So I probably should have been a bit more aware of that going into it. But tell me why there was so much repetition in the first 50% of the book. Like, I've heard that the second 50% makes up for it and is apparently so much better, but I just couldn't force myself. I was like, I'm gonna send myself into a slump if I push myself through. So I'm only able to talk about my experience with the first 50%. So repetitive. No, we can't do this because it'll ruin my reputation, because I'm a boss and like a woman in sports, and oh my God, it's like, how many times do we have to do that? I actually did that like 5 times. I'm not even joking. It was like a kiss, and then it was like, no, we can't do this. And then it was like, okay. And then they did it again. No, we can't do. I'm like, right. So how many times are we going to go through this never-ending cycle? It literally made me want to pull out my hair. I just wasn't vibing. I liked them both individually as characters. Like, genuinely, Reese, Emmett, loved. Also, I'm sorry, but I was just cringing a little bit with her calling him M. Like, okay, M is a shortened version of Emmett, but I don't know, M in my head is a girl's name. And like, obviously, you know, each their own whatever, but it just like, I don't know, every time she said it, I was like, what? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But that's probably just me. But anyways, no, yeah, so disappointed. So disappointed, so upset. I'm confused because everyone loved this. So I'm like, what's wrong with me? It's really weird when that happens. But I was like, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I loved this just because everyone loved it when I didn't. And that's okay. Okay, 2 books left now. So we've got Fever Dream by Elsie Silver. And let me preface by saying, out of the 4 books that did not meet my expectations and are not worth your time, this is the best out of all of them. I would still recommend this book, even though I was disappointed in it. I still rated it 4 stars, whereas the others, I mean, that's 2 DNFs right there, and the next one, to be fair, the next one's probably like 3.75, but I would still recommend this. I still had a good time with it. I liked both the characters. I just felt like the chemistry was lacking a little bit. I felt like the reality TV show element of it did start to feel a little bit repetitive there for a minute. Not very long. It was probably only like 10% of the book, maybe 15%, where I was thinking, okay, like I'm a little bit irritated now. And then I felt like Elsie Silver had a missed opportunity because Theo and Emmett are rivals and Julie is Theo's sister. And all of a sudden, Theo kind of just got on board with it. Like, yeah, okay, there was a little bit of like, oh no, you can't trust him, he's a playboy, whatever. But he got on board way too quick. And there was a little situation at the start where Emmett saved Julia, and I just can't believe that wasn't revealed to Theo. Because Theo had this idea in his head of who he thought Emmett was based on his reputation, what he had seen when they were like traveling and on tour. And Theo was never given the opportunity to actually understand Emmett on a deeper level, and I just genuinely can't believe that was the case. Julia literally could have said to him, no, he saved me, and explained the situation. And that didn't happen. That genuinely lost 0.5 of a star for me. That went down. And then the lack of chemistry also kind of pushed it down a little bit. I think it's hard because when you love an author, you're always going to have high expectations for the next book. This was like a decent first book in a series, and I do think that Elsie Silver's books, where they're first in a series, tend to be like not as good as the next ones. But yeah, I was a bit disappointed. I still did have a good time though. I think I just really thought this was going to be 5 stars based on the blurb. And it just, yeah, it's weird. It was one of those books where I just like kind of couldn't really put my finger on why I didn't enjoy it as much, but it seems like a lot of people have the same opinions. So, you know, if you're going into it expecting kind of just like, you know, a 4-star read, then I would still say go for it. It was still enjoyable. And then that takes me to my last read, and this was Anna Huang's new release from her Kings of Sin series, King of Gluttony. So I had pretty high expectations for this book because King of Envy, the one prior to this one, is my favorite in that series. Absolutely loved it, everything about it. Genuinely, Vuk and Ayana, top tier couple for me. So I thought, okay, King of Gluttony, surely we're just gonna like continue on from that like high threshold. And we didn't. The first half of this book was slow. Not in terms of like the pacing, but slow in me connecting to the romance. I was just kind of like, all right, obviously they're childhood rivals. I didn't feel like we got much backstory on their lives growing up and like why they became rivals. That was kind of just all left out, which was, you know, quite strange. And then I just didn't really feel the chemistry between them. It was a fun read though. I enjoyed it because I audiobooked it, and I will say that the last 40% really brought up the rating for me. There was lots more going on with the plot, which made it fun. He was a chef. I really love a man that cooks. He's also French, and the guy that plays him in the audiobook, oh my God, had a French accent, and it was just, Connor Craig did that job to perfection. I genuinely can't. So he was hot, right? It was more just like the lack of chemistry between them both. And then the most anticlimactic decision, was ridiculous, right? So there was a reason why these two didn't end up together initially in their past. When that reason was revealed, I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is gonna be like so exciting. Like, oh my God, what happened? Who did it? All these things, right? Going through my head thinking, wow. We find out, right? Right at the very end, like one of the last pages of the book, we find out. What was that? What was that? I actually can't understand how she thought to write that. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. I was sitting there thinking, if that's the way you're going to decide to go, then just change the whole idea, because what? So ridiculous. Honestly, this is one of those books where you kind of read it and you're like, yeah, that was fun. And then the more time you spend away from it, the lower the rating gets, because you start thinking about it and you just start thinking, what? And like, you know, the first 200 pages of it, I think I read another book in between as well, because I was just like, oh, okay, you know, like, I did end up giving it 3.75. I don't know. I really don't know. It definitely didn't live up to the hype. I'm actually not sure how I feel about Anna Huang as an author anymore. I think I might be like outgrowing her. I loved her Twisted series, and I read that so early on into my reading journey. And I don't know, every book in the Kings of Sin series other than King of Envy has been a miss for me. So, King of Greed was good as well, actually. I did like King of Greed. But I don't know. I think at this point, more of her books I don't like than I do. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't know how to feel. Out of the 8 books I read, 2 exceeded my expectations, 2 lived up to my expectations, and 4 did not. These last 4, don't waste your time, honestly. Just go read Broken Dove and Hunt the Villain. Like, seriously, so good. Anyways, that's all for me today. Thank you so much for being here and listening to me yap. It means so much to me that you actually care what the hell I'm talking about. So, thank you, and I'll see you again next time soon. Bye!